Hello viewers, you are tuned in to the Channel 5 News. My name is Andrea Louis. We begin with the Member of Parliament for the Portsmouth constituency, Honourable Ian Douglas, who tells the Channel 5 News reporter Julian Morris that there has been considerable progress in the recovery efforts in his constituency in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria.
Like the rest of the island, we've suffered tremendous damage to property, particularly roofs. But what is remarkable about what you see, and it is the opinion of perhaps the rest of Dominica and perhaps some international observers who have come in, that Portsmouth have really been making remarkable recovery. That is in part due to the level of organization that we have had in place. We have a disaster preparedness committee that have actually been in place for a couple of years now, and we meet very regularly and discuss the various disasters that potentially could affect the town of Portsmouth, from tsunami, go right back to hurricanes as we have seen. And basically all of the systems were put in place very early. We had a hurricane plan, a pre-disaster plan during the hurricane itself and after the hurricane. So that went into high gear days before Maria actually struck Dominica. I must commend Domlec and Dowasco. Dowasco actually, reinstated the water supply within days of Maria. By Friday, we had water supply back in the pipes and in the homes of persons. Domlec did a tremendous job to get the high tension wires back up. We had, again, private operators within the Portsmouth area with equipment came on board and helped Domlec with crane trucks and backhoes and excavators to clear the roads so that Domlec could get to the fallen high tension wires and reinstate them. It was just a tremendous effort by every single person. We have a guy down here called Wayne Abraham, who is a ham radio operator. When we had the Scientists Without Borders coming in from Paris, from France via Guadeloupe, we hooked up with him. We took him to them and introduced them to him so that internet access was readily available. Some persons who had generators started off opening their bars and restaurants, and persons could go there at nights and be entertained. So it took up the stress and the psychological pressures that would normally come with a disaster of that magnitude, of the town folk and of the people. And that in itself, the energy just went from one sector of the community to the next. And we were so well organized down here. Like I said, from the management of the shelters, getting people in the shelters before, to the distribution of relief supplies, to those shelters, distribution of water, to the organization in the town, and in the aftermath, the cleaning up of the town and getting the essential services up and running. So we had electricity and power to the fire station, to the hospital, to the police station, to the health center, to the shelters themselves. It is absolutely amazing, the kind of organization and the spirit that existed, the spirit of cooperation and of volunteerism that existed from Maria right up until now. Persons are very upbeat and are very optimistic that we will in fact get back to our pre-Maria days ultimately.
A significant number of employees at Whitchurch IGA in Roseau, I think, are pretty much, not sure of their jobs right now. What impact Maria had on, let's say, business in the Portsmouth area?
Well, Maria impacted a lot of business places throughout the island, and Portsmouth is no exception. But there are some, luckily, places that really did not suffer as much damage as probably some businesses in Roseau, in the capital, because most of those businesses are on the ground floor. And the whole issue of looting and lawlessness was not as pronounced in Portsmouth as it was in Roseau. So we had a lot of businesses who could, in the interim, provide some kind of interim services for the town folk. But also remember that all of the wholesalers and the suppliers to businesses in Portsmouth are in Roseau. And so if those wholesalers and big businesses are affected, automatically it would affect the level of business in Portsmouth, and that is what has happened. But there were also some business owners who really opened their doors and were giving stuff out free of charge in the aftermath of Maria to their employees and close friends and family, and ultimately the needy persons within the community, and I must commend some of the businesses for that. So also some of the businesses that were owned by all the Chinese entrepreneurs, especially in the Picard area, before they went back to China, they made a lot of donation of a lot of grocery items and a lot of food items to persons in the community, which was also very good. Ross University is also continuing to support their employees and staff members by making regular donations and contributions of relief items to their employees. So, and by and large, we have a bustling marine trade. All the vessels that ply the islands from Guadeloupe to Saint Martin and Antigua have been going back and forth, bringing stuff, supplies and foodstuff, tarpaulins and other hurricane relief material that are needed in the aftermath, solar lights and stuff, back from those islands who have been less hit or who remain untouched by the 2 successive hurricanes. And we have been beneficiaries of that also, and we're very happy for that.
Mm-hmm. Let me go back, if I may, a little bit to the Ross situation. Yeah. Is it a fact that the students are currently off island? And I was wondering what impact that might have on some of the, of course, the significant number of people who offer rooms to them and so on.
Oh yes, I mean, Ross is the economic anchor in this part of the island, and Ross is a very significant player on the economic scene in Dominica generally. Ross is probably the one of the second largest employer of persons in Dominica, and obviously that would have a significant economic impact, especially for the landlords and house and homeowners who provide accommodation services to Ross University students. They will lose the income in the interim while Ross does the necessary rehabilitation and renovation works that must be done on the campus. But we have been assured that they will return, and they hope to be back up and running in January, and I hope that that is the case, as long as they can do the necessary repair works in time to start operations again in the university in the new year. And we as a government and as a community will do whatever it takes to ensure that Ross is back up and running in quick time.
Your fishermen down here, were they affected seriously?
I wouldn't say seriously or severely, but certainly they have been affected. We have had some loss of boats, some boats have been damaged, and the seas really was not the damaging component of the hurricane really this time around. And so really I would not say that the marine sector has been severely affected. Some damage and some loss of boats, but not, I wouldn't say that has been severely as say maybe Omar or Lenny did to the fishing sector.
Okay, and finally you have some significant hotel projects here located in this part of the country. Yeah. What impact did they suffer?
Well, in the aftermath of Maria, there was closure and stoppage of works on those projects, but we have been assured that even as next week, actually, the work will recommence at the Kopinski site, and we hope that the Moroccans will follow in short order also. So our hotel development works in this area, it looks from all things, will not be severely affected. I think also Kopinski probably is thinking about, instead of maybe wooden and galvanized roofs, they're probably thinking about maybe doing some concrete roofs to withstand any future disasters of that type. But certainly they have given the commitment that work will recommence immediately.
A pleasure indeed, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The parliamentary representative for the Portsmouth constituency, the Honourable Ian Douglas, they're filling us in on Portsmouth 1 month after Hurricane Maria. Well, as you have seen, Portsmouth has been affected like any other part of the island as a result of Hurricane Maria, but it seems that the recovery process here was a little much faster than a number of other areas on the island. From Portsmouth, Julian Morris reporting for Channel 5 News.
Coming up next, the parish priest of Portsmouth tells reporter Julian Morris of the impact of Hurricane Maria on the newly renovated church building.
And I have with me the new parish priest here, Father Elvio Augustine, who's been here for, I think, basically just 2 weeks, or you came 2 weeks prior to Maria.
Yes.
It's almost like it has been placed in your hands.
Yes.
And to see what you might do with it.
Indeed.
So how is parish life since the 1 month later since Maria?
Well, parish life is as normal as I can make it, except for the destruction, the damage done to the church, and the entire roof of the presbytery was completely blown off. And the church itself, not so much damage, except the roof. The galvanized has been impaled by some flying objects we have, and some ripped, not totally, but ripped, which causes a lot of leak into the church. And we had some of the windows and the doors, the eastern door and the main door been blown out completely by Maria, and some of the glass windows completely shattered. But the force of the wind of Maria brought the pews together and just piled them one on top of the other. We had to clear that up and put the church as orderly as we can. Some pews got broken and things, and a lot of leak and water all over. But we are operating as normal as can be, in spite of, and I think that's a big plus. We had some cleaning up done around the church. So we are operating as normal as we can, and given the circumstances, as if nothing has happened. But we know things have happened, but the spirit of the people is indefatigable, so they're doing the best they can.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the mass is held still in the same building?
The same building at the same time. 8 o'clock for Sundays and 6 o'clock in the morning. And one of the great pluses, I must say too, is the fact that in spite of the church is it's opened, anybody can come in. We had some guys sleeping in, which is understandable because hurricane, but they were told and instructed to sleep at the back and don't do anything out of the way, out of irreverence for the church, and they obeyed. And the candles and the mics and the things are still there. No one has touched them. No one has kind of vandalized them. And I think that's a big plus for the guys around. That says much for the town of Portsmouth in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what happens with the Catholic school itself? Let's expand a little bit to St. John's Academy and so on.
Well, St. John's Academy is operating. UNICEF has built them a tent, and so we have a tent set up by the church. And St. John's Primary also has a tent because the part of the school is uncovered still.
Okay. So with all of this, you've had to be relocated yourself. You've had to get accustomed to new surroundings, so to speak.
Yes, a new presbytery, and which was easily obtainable. And thank God for a good parishioner who saw it fit. Well, even before actually the storm, I had relocated to this place because the presbytery was being renovated. And thank God, that place was available and it was obtained before. And here it is. That's where I am now.
As a result, you didn't have to hastily move.
Definitely not.
Already.
Definitely not.
You were ahead.
Yeah, ahead of the time. Ahead of Maria. Yes.
Father Elvio, it's just a pleasure. Such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it.
The subject of food security moving forward and the impact of Hurricane Maria on the fishery sector. Here is Kenny Williams with more.
The fishery sector, it took a pounding as well, but not as hard as the agricultural sector. FAO has committed itself towards assisting us within the fishery sector, and government will also be making available some funds to assist our fisher folks, because this is one of the areas where we believe that we could assist ourselves in food security, in providing high nutrients for our community protein for communities through the fishing sector. However, we still have some rough seas, but the intention is to assist the fishers in getting back at sea and getting us back to the 99% self-sufficiency as far as fish is concerned that we had on this island. Because we had prided ourselves over the year of doing remarkable in fishing. Every village had a small port for fishing and so on. But we've lost quite a bit of our boats. As a matter of fact, in the Castlemus area, the boats were tossed. The wind took them and fly them over far from the shore of the sea and damage the engine. I'm going to be helping them with their boats, and we're going to help them with the fishing gears so they could get back at sea. We started a program immediately after Maria at the fishery sector, where we were assisting fishers with gas for them to go out and fish. So they will go into the fisheries division and they will get in some gasoline so that they could go out and fish and bring in fish, just bring in fish, and so on. We may have to go back to the tradition of smoking fish, salting and smoking. We've been trying to tell our fishers they must go out with ice, but we're going to take it easy on that now. There's no ice anyway. Just go get fish, come back and supply the community with fish. They will smoke it, they'll dry it, they'll roast it, but they'll find creative ways of cooking it. But for sure, we're going back to the old days and so on. I have asked my people, every one of them in the constituency, to build up what we used to call the fireside. Get the 4 stones, get the sticks, and build up a fireside for smoking and drying and cooking, because that's the only way they will be able to preserve their fish and their meat and so on. But we are coping. We're using the water from the source. That's how we call it down here. It's a tradition, and we're encouraging our people to boil the water. 99% of them not boiling it because they say they cause some of their source water. But when we get water from government, we accept. But when we do not have, we go to the source and we get water, and we are surviving. I want to say to persons listening to me that the resilience is alive in Dominica, and we are fighting back. We are fighting Maria. We're going to rebuild this country better than it was before, and we're going to ensure that everything we do, it's one notch ahead of what it was in the past, so that we can be more resilient to hurricanes, because I can tell you, it looks like there's more to come.
Finally, you spoke to something that I really wanted to ask you about, food security. I think Maria is a lesson that all of us could learn from in terms of securing food for the country. What plans are in place, especially with regards to fisheries and agriculture, 2 of the things that we depend on a lot for food, to ensure that something like this is not likely to happen, where we would be in need so much of this food?
Well, we've had hurricanes in the past. I was a young boy when Hurricane David, but I remember the following morning, there was still breadfruit on some of the trees, and there was still a few avocados on some of the trees. But Maria was different. Maria wiped out every fruit on every tree. Maria literally weeded the farms, ripping the yams off. So Maria in one day destroyed 10 years of hard work. That's the difference between Maria and all of the hurricanes we've had. So we may not be able to prevent hurricanes from decimating our agriculture as long as it's as strong as Maria. There's nothing we could do to protect the agricultural sector from Maria. One of the things we may have to look at is how do we preserve our food going down the line. We have to look at a way of giving our food some shelf life so we could have some of our food preserved, like they do with gas. They have reserves of gas. So we have to think of how we're going to do that, so that when a hurricane strikes, even though it's for 1 month, we could still have some food supply and so on. But Maria was a shocker, something that none of us will forget, including you. I strongly believe. So we'll do what we can. But if global warming continues at the pace it is, and if the international community do not help us, we'll be in trouble for some time. But for sure, we're ready to fight back. One of the areas where, especially for this area, I'm not sure what we're going to be doing, is in the area of small business. As you know, government had this wonderful program of supporting the small businesses in the area, helping people to be self-employed. And they may not have been making a lot of money, but they had the turnovers where they could sustain themselves and so on. So you had the little bars and the little restaurants and so on. They've all been decimated. Not one bar, not one small restaurant survived Maria. So we have to help these persons in getting their business back up and running, but we will support them with material after we have assisted houses. Accommodation is our #1 priority, and then we'll go into helping small businesses and so on to get them up and running, because we believe in supporting our restaurants. It's a place where you could come and get food at any time in this area and so on. So we're going to continue supporting that.
The agriculture and fisheries sectors were dealt a major blow as a result of Hurricane Maria, and efforts are underway to ensure that Dominica is resilient and moves forward after this major Category 5 hurricane. Kenny Williams reporting for Channel 5 News.
The Dominica Water and Sewerage Company, DOWASCO, is reporting that over 50% of the country has had water restored. This comes a few weeks after the passage of Hurricane Maria. Speaking to Channel 5 News, the PRO of DOWASCO, Edward Regis, said that though the company suffered approximately $30 million in damage, they are impressed with the progress thus far.
Well, certainly the damage was catastrophic. If there is a stronger word to use, let's find it and let's use it. But, you know, the flood waters in particular, which were channeled through many channels or many rivers and streams and so on, washed away quite a few of our infrastructure, quite a bit of our infrastructure. It also impacted some of our reservoirs and so on, as you would expect. And so we were impacted even right here at our head office. Our sewage system was also impacted, and you know, across the country we had water interruptions, and so immediately following, in the aftermath of the hurricane, I believe the entire country was out of water. Yes.
And given that you suffered so much damage from the storm, what has the restoration process been like so far?
Well, just days after the storm, the Wasco crews were out trying to restore water to several communities. We suffered close to, rather over $30 million in damage, that's the estimate. And to restore that, you know, was always going to be a major feat. However, just within weeks of the storm having passed, we were able to restore water to several communities. To date, we have restored more than 50% of the country's water supply, and we're very proud of that. Just a month after, there were areas that were more severely affected than others, and we're continuing. You know, many of our staff themselves suffered personal loss, and yet they were able to, you know, put that aside in some way to try and, you know, put country first and to restore water to many parts of the country. But let me just tell you some of the areas where we have restored water. We've restored water to the city of Roseau, obviously, to parts of Fokole. We have also restored water to Newtown, Kings Hill, Ems Hall, Wallhouse, Louisville, Castle Comfort, Maho, Canefield, Goodwill, Bath Estate, Tarish Beat, Loda, Cochrane, Lower Coptal, parts of the Kalinago territory, Calibishi, Monjon, Riviere Cyric, Castle Bruce, Grand Fond, Salisbury, Portsmouth, Cottage, Tukari, Point Michel, Loubier, Citrony, and parts of Granby. Now, there are also several communities where they do not have direct or quick access to streams and even rivers. Some of them in the interior, some in other parts. We are trucking water to many of these communities where we have not restored water, and areas where they find it difficult to access water. So a lot of communities are also getting a daily supply of water from the Wasco. Is trucked, you know, and that is also you know, helping many of the residents around the country. Many of our systems, of course, I must tell you, remain extremely vulnerable, if not all of them. All of those that have been restored remain extremely vulnerable. I know some people are complaining, hey, we had water this morning and tonight we don't have. We have to let the public know that, you know, they are vulnerable, and there will be intermittent interruptions from time to time. One of the main things that would cause that would be leaks on the system. And so when there are leaks, it is necessary for us to go out there and repair those leaks so that we do not lose too much water from our storage systems. And so we do that. So we need patience. In several communities also, we have also conducted tests. You know, we are required to undertake chlorine tests and so on because we chlorinate the water, and we're happy to note that you know, we are meeting World Health Organization standards even under these circumstances. So the water is safe for drinking, it's safe for consumption, and so people would be happy to know that. A number of people ask me that question: can we still drink the water? Of course. If it is supplied by the WASCO, we ensure that we undertake various tests to ensure that the water is portable.
As we know, the island was not left untouched, and as you mentioned, your systems have been compromised. What would you say are the hindrances or problems that the WASCO teams encounter in trying to restore water to the people of Dominica?
And of course, you know, the terrain here in Dominica is certainly one that would be, you know, a major hindrance. In some areas, the location of some of our intakes and so on would pose a problem. Many of them suffered damage. Trees, landslides, and so on would impede our access to many of these water sources. And so that has been a challenge. We've also, of course, suffered the loss of pipes and so on. Some of these pipes are huge pipes, and they're not easy to maneuver. And so we have to find some of these pipes. Some of them we have to order, you know, especially in the Pebush area. I was discussing the other day with another media house that, you know, it's unfortunate what has happened in the Pebush area. We've lost quite a few feet of pipe, and so we have to order that, bring that in. So they're going to be without water for a little while. We also, manpower is also an issue. Our crews are stretched, you know, and so on. And so that is a hindrance too. But we also need the cooperation of the general public. In some places, you get very good cooperation. People come out and say, hey, we want water, and we'll assist the WASCO, you know, in whatever way that we can. Granby, for example, I can tell you, you know, we got quite a bit of assistance. But in other communities, you know, it's not as available. And so, you know, that is another hindrance. And of course, resources, financial resources. I mean, we've been very hard hit, and I'm so happy that there are a number of people who are coming to the WASCO to pay their bills, you know, and we encourage that because we need the resources to ensure that we can continue to provide the service. It's not easy. But of course, there are a number of international agencies that have begun to work with us to help to restore both our water system and our sewage systems. And so that is helping. I'm certain that we'll have to depend on government to assist us, and maybe crews from our sister islands to maybe coming and to assist us. So certainly we're making a lot of progress. We're going to have to build some of the systems to be more resilient to climate change and to these sort of systems, because as it is being said, we expect more forceful hurricanes and other weather systems in the future. And so I guess we're going to have to look at those very closely and to ensure that we can, you know, rebuild bigger and better and more resilient, I'm sure. But the WASCO continues to persevere in our effort to restore water to the entire country. Again, we want to let people know that there are going to be interruptions. We suffered a major blow. But be patient. You know, the WASCO is working assiduously to ensure that we can return to as close to as normal as possible.
And you just heard from the PRO of the WASCO, Edward Regis, speaking to Channel 5 News at the company's restoration efforts in the wake of Hurricane Maria. This has been the Channel 5 News. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Andrea Louis, and to all of our viewers around the world, thank you so much for watching. Join us next time.